And a very good morning to you once again, and thank you very much for joining us on GBS Morning Extra. Again, as I told you before the break, today we are going to discuss a topic that to many Kenyans might have been forgotten for a while. But the thankful thing is that this issue has not yet been forgotten, as there are people who are working day and night to make sure that the situation is under control. I'm talking about the locust infestation in the country. Right before we were talking about the COVID-19, the biggest news in the country was the locust infestation. We know that the locusts, the big swarms of locusts, did indeed pass to other countries or other parts. But then, right now, as we speak, there are pockets of swarms that are being experienced in some parts of the country, like Kitui and the rest. And we are going to talk to an expert who understands more about this. I'm talking about a guest who's been with us here before and spoken to us about the topic and how it is being controlled. I'm talking about Eric Kimungui, who is the CEO of the Agri-Chemical Association of Kenya, joining us on a video call this morning. Eric, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Yeah. Quite a difficult time this time. Are you moving around or are you staying at home?
I'm staying at home. I'm actually limited movement. I only go for important or essential meetings. But I think the country is going through one of the most difficult times in terms of managing the emerging issues in the country.
Sure. David, Eric, I would like to engage you first and foremost. When you visited the studio, we were talking about the locust infestation in the country, and indeed at that time it was at its peak or at its height. But then seemed to be like the coming of the COVID-19 has really distracted many people's attention from that, and we are all focused on the COVID-19. But how, let's begin with this. How is the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the fight against the infestation of locusts in the country?
I missed that. How is the COVID-19?
How is the coming of the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the normal running and also the fight against the infestation of locusts in the country?
Thanks, Timothy. I think with the coming of COVID-19, I think we had it from China. You remember it went to Wuhan, and China being one of the supplying countries of some of these crop protection products. Then we had a lot of delays in terms of accessing farming goods. And this one spilled over with, of course, movement and everything else. It moved over and spilled over to other countries like Italy, which is also Europe, which is generally also a source of majority of crop protection products come from there. And with the current restriction of movement, banning of meetings and everything else, spill over into the country because the president has to take those decisions to protect the citizens. And in most cases when we are doing all these government initiatives, it affects meetings, planning meetings and everything. It means that the updates, now it becomes difficult for us to access meetings, it becomes difficult for people to visit the sites because of restricted movement. And that's one of the most greatest impact that had. And reasons why when you started to say that this probably COVID-19 has masked the efforts currently being done by the government in terms of management of locusts. And then beyond there also, we have seen the curfew, the coming of the curfew and the restriction of movement and the classification of certain services into essential and non-essential services. Then therefore it also complicates the issue because remember with to control locusts there must be movement. To control locusts you must access certain inputs. And if you have limited people working in the office, the supplies of these inputs is affected. And therefore generally the complexities that has come with COVID-19 has really made also masked from your statement, mask the efforts being made by the government in terms of control. But I can report to you that the control measures are still ongoing. We saw in Kitui the other day, we saw Tarakani the other day, the National Youth Service doing the on-ground application, of course, basically targeting the eggs, the needs into the others. You remember the life cycle of all stages. So the strategy for control of locusts is comprehensive. Probably it will be affected by certain restrictions in movement, but I can tell you, it's on top of it. Of of course, you will hear some swamps coming up. Of course, they might have escaped control. And those are Kenyan-born swamps. So this hoppers going to move and moving around. And that's what now the government has deployed National Youth Service, youth that have been trained, equipped, and have access to and given safety, personal protective equipment to go and assist the county governments and all the control strategies to manage that.
I mean, you mentioned something very important there. There's a term you used, Kenyan-born swamps. You know, the swamps that we saw before are swamps that crossed over from, Somalia and the other parts. But then right now, what we're experiencing in the country is these are, if I would call them hatchlings, or hatched from the eggs that were laid by the swamps that passed the country.
Basically, actually, we are trying to believe that the swamps that came into the country, of course, they had spend their time and they had to move on to the next generation. They laid eggs. So typically, when you look at the life cycle of the locust, it will probably, depending on the species, it varies depending on the climatic conditions. But assuming 2 months or 8 weeks or 7 to 8 weeks, something like that, then you'll have another generation of swamps. So we are believing that these are the ones that were born in Kenya. Now they're moving, trying to move out. The eggs are hatching into neems, into hopper bands, and that's what we're trying to move. We are believing these are the ones that the first ones, when they came in, they laid eggs. So we are managing. We're not getting any foreign swamps, but we are managing swamps that have been born here. That's the imagination we're trying to do.
So what we're dealing with right now are swamps from within Kenya and not from outside Kenya. You mentioned something about...
So that's why we're trying to believe these are the swamps that the eggs that were laid, probably we missed in managing it. And there's a reason why. So when the government came in, it was to stop more swamps moving around. And it was basically aero application, which has not stopped anyway. Still ongoing. Vigilance, surveillance is ongoing. And now we have deployed the National Youth Service. Government has deployed 9 youth service that have been trained, and basically their work is to control on-ground applications.
On-ground applications.
But on-ground applications, what it is that depending on the product they are going to use, depending on the life stages they are going to get in the field, it could be probably eggs are hidden, you might not access them. But the newer stages that have hide the one that we call a hatchlings, those ones will be controlled, and that will prevent breaking the cycle so that they don't move into hopper bands and into. Strategy is now on ground, while of course the surveillance is still ongoing by air. But mostly, if we control the on ground, then we are preventing them from moving onto swamps so that they move on to go and lay eggs in a different direction.
So we are containing them at that early stage. Probably
we are containing them at that stage. So that
probably maybe you could just also elaborate this, because right now, as we speak, the government is, like you mentioned, and like we know, the government has put in measures, in terms of restriction, in terms of movement. And there are what are termed as essential services and non-essential services. We saw the other day when, people complained about police brutality. We could see police actually stopping motorists. Some of them, were truck drivers, and you never know what these trucks were carrying. Maybe they were ferrying foodstuff, or they were ferrying medical supply, or so on and so forth. How is this also slowing down the process, or it is slowing down the process in making sure that the essential material or pesticides that are needed to get to the ground, say, for instance, like in Kitui and other parts of the country? How is this restriction of movement affecting these operations?
So far, what the worry is, because of the curfew, we still believe that the slowing down and the restriction of number of staff will have an impact in terms of how quick we will respond to supplying of products to the affected areas. And two, also the transportation. You can imagine we are talking about these products being in Marsabit, Turkana, areas that require long distance travel, particularly if you are talking about Locust. Now, you can imagine if you have to ship products from Nairobi to Marsabit, generally the curfew period will be affected. And therefore, that's why we are saying, as much as we are not sure if we have to respond on time, we have to be agile in terms of how we respond. Then therefore that we must also try to understand that, one, that also these services, fresh services, what the National Youth Service is providing, they need to move from one location to another. Also, it should be classified as essential at this point in time. Two, the movement of the products and so the interventions that are going to be used in terms of managing this locust, because now they're coming up, should be classified as essential, so that in case they're moving during the day and probably they have to move beyond 1 p.m., then that facilitation is made, of course, with caution. And two, three, we are also talking about that. Now, even if we are trying to control that, we have to move on in terms of food security. But also, generally the farm input, seeds, fertilizers, crop protection products, and everything else also should be considered, should be given a different lens, viewed in a different lens during this time, because this is our main season for production of food. That with cautions, we're observing what the government has recommended, if we can be allowed to transport these products to that. Yes, we know it's a curfew only, and probably farmers are doing purchasing during the day. But in case you'll spill over to other decisions, then we are saying that also this product should be classified as essential service, essential goods and services. In fact, critical. You can imagine a good example is also veterinary products. Look at the veterinary products whenever animal health, animal welfare. If animals are sick and they need to be attended to, you need to move them fast. So also we are asking the government to include such kind of products categories, so that in case there's need for movement of these products or those service providers during time outside the curfew period, they can be considered.
Yeah, and we also understand that, this, of course, cross-country, like you mentioned, if the product is to come from Nairobi and travel all the way to Turkana, then definitely if they have to go there, if we have to consider the time factor and how urgently they are needed in Turkana, then we have to break the bounds of, the dawn to dusk curfew. Eric, look, from the Agrochemical Association perspective, do you think farmers are cautioned from, any, I would say, deterrents or any delays in terms of getting, the right products, also for, preserving their farm inputs and produce and so on and so forth? Because you say this is a time where we are actually producing our food. Is this going to affect not just about the locust, but also other aspects of the farming going forward?
What normally happens is that there is a pre-season stocking. So there are fast farmers that can access this, and that was not ordinarily similar in all situations. Some farmers will want to buy products when they see the season is right, when they are ready for that. So what we have established is that, with the curfew, we know there will be movement of products during the day. Possible that movement farmers like products during the day. But in the event that it goes into an expected decision that there will be the lockdown and everything else, and that's when we're trying to say that these products should be looked at in a different lens. Now we believe that they could be affected because of the movement. But imagine if you have to ship products to Nairobi to, let's say, even Eldoret. I'm talking just about farmers or Kitale from Nairobi. That takes the whole day. So basically, is a logistical challenge to companies to supply products there. We appreciate that, so that the stockies or the agro dealers there can then dispense it to the farmers. But we have already discussed we are negotiating with the government to see whether they can relook at this and say, fine, farm inputs can move, because so that if you want to deliver products in Eldoret in the morning, then you can transport it at night. But as long as you are transporting it in a safer, observing the recommended recommendation from government. So those are the things that we are negotiating with the government now. But we believe that still we have not had any difficult challenge in stock. We have stockouts of key products because of the global logistics is closed down. But in China from the new year, and then they went into COVID, for instance. Europe is now locked down, there's restricted movement. South Africa as well, you will know what's happening in South Africa, which is also keen supplying products here. So that's one challenge. But we can allow the government, because there are some already services that have been classified as essential. Drugs, food supplies, courier, and all those kind of things. So if courier is also applying registered courier services, and products can be used to transport those products, and they have been allowed to transport, then you can find that we can look at it in a different way.
I think that's very important also to lay. Before we began the show, you mentioned something about the Food and Agriculture Organization coming in also to try and cushion the challenges that the government is facing right now. Maybe you could mention that also and elaborate to us what that really means at this particular time.
Yeah. Food and Agriculture Organization have been the core in terms of surveillance, checking on advising countries around the Horn of Africa, so on new swarms coming in. We get notifications where new swarms are seen in Kenya, what's happening in Ethiopia, what's happening in Eritrea, and so on. So apart from surveillance and providing global advice, also Food and Agriculture Organization have assisted in training all the National Youth Service personnel you see providing on-ground services for spray application to manage the on-ground hoppers. Beyond that, they also facilitated and helped the country in getting vehicles pick up with mounted equipment motorized to spray to apply to help in applying the pesticides. Beyond that, also the technical knowledge in terms of people to understand the life cycle, how to manage, how to apply. So they're working closely with the Desert Locust Control Organization. They're working closely with the Ministry of Agriculture and other stakeholders in trying to manage this locust menace.
As the Agrochemical Association of Kenya, I believe that it's also within your mandate to ensure that even as we talk about, NYS, people like NYS now being employed to try and do the ground control, but then, it is also part of your mandate to ensure that the kind of training that they're getting and the kind of application that they're doing on the ground is also still tandem to, the basic requirements. Are they doing this? And would you say that you're confident enough that they're handling the situation as should be?
Yes, we believe SAO has got good technical know-how. But to us also, we train the spray service providers.
Yes.
We have over 1,000 spray service providers, and a discussion on the table here is that how can FAO and Ministry of Agriculture engage these already trained spray service providers, we call them so, to give support in their various counties so that they become a part of the response team.
Yes.
We are in discussion with FAO locally to have a we train the NYS in terms of also other not Locust only, other pest application safety and FAO trains our spray service providers on the management of locusts. So these are discussions is underway, and eventually we're going to see an integrated team in terms of offering the services to the county.
To the county, yeah, because I think that's also quite important, because should we not get the right kind of training, then definitely we are looking at...
I believe FAO is giving the right training. Also, and because of the nature of the emergency, if I remember, even the training that we give ourselves, we give the spray service providers, is actually based on FAO guidelines. So the FAO is internationally based on FAO guidelines. So what we are trying to do is that how can we have a competent team of people who will be ready there, will be assimilated in countries and government so that they work on these response emergency issues. Whenever we have an emergency, we have a team that is competent enough to handle that. And towards this, we have already engaged the FAO, we have already engaged the Ministry of Agriculture, and the discussion on top here and how to handle that. Apparently, the issue of COVID complicated the issue that we had to stop certain issues first. But eventually, after we sort out this one, then we're going to have a clear team to manage the on-ground applications, not the area ones.
Yeah, because that's, like you mentioned, you guys provide services and not in a bad light, but then should someone else do the work that you guys are doing, then probably maybe pushing you out of business. But then I think such kind of synergies or cohesions, I think...
It's not pushing us out of business, but the reality is that, yes, that is where the missing link is. And you can imagine the missing link is that in fact, involvement of all stakeholders in terms of management. And I think it's a learning curve for us in terms of the response, particularly to the locust issue. That there are missing links that we can strengthen there. What is already existing? Because there's an emergency issue there. What can industry do? It was quite a bit difficult now, but the opening up in terms of involving other stakeholders. Like, for instance, the industry. We are the producers of the interventions, the products to spray, but there was little involvement of us. Also, there's means of agriculture. There's desert locust control here. So I think with the whole thing is that going forward after this, I think there will be need to form an emergency kind of team to have like a policy in terms of how are we going to have to handle emergency issues, particularly when it comes to crops, animal health, or even human health.
Sure.
That one I'm not going to talk about. Let me talk about the issues of crops. We have had issues. Remember, we keep mentioning this, that we have had emerging pests, maize lethal necrotic virus. Yes. We had tutor solutum. Yes. We have fall armyworm. We have force codling mold. All these are emergency pests that are pests not known for us.
Yes.
So I think with the challenges that we have built over time, and more complicated one is the fall armyworm, is that we have a team of specialists, we have universities, we have research centers. Why can't you establish a team and they can give a recommendation? That we needed not to wait for the hoppers to hatch. This approach should have started a long time ago. Sure. So it's all about bringing the team together, but sometimes the government knows it's its own mandate and wants to focus on that. We have other stakeholders outside there,
yes,
people in the industry who are so willing to give, not necessarily to sell, give solutions. And I think, I'm sure after this, we are going to have a very fruitful discussion towards that. And that's the reason why actually we have a team to spray, but they were left out for reasons that we don't know, or that they were not aware or something like that. But it's something that we are going to work on so that in future, we first of all utilize to respond to situations with the resources we have before we develop other new resources.
Of course, there's always a learning period for each and every challenge that arises. Like for instance, when you look at the COVID-19, it's a big challenge to the global community. And right now, of course, as we listen to those who are in the forefront, the World Health Organization talking about maybe it will take about a year. And so to get a vaccine for the same, I believe those are some of the challenges that you guys are facing in terms of.
Actually, you raise a very good point because you see what World Health Organization and everybody, even the CS for health, what they are recommending is basically simple things.
Yes. Social
distancing. Wash your hands.
Wash your hands.
Only don't travel unnecessarily. And these are some of the things that they will help us in flattening the gap, so they call it.
Sure. And
it's basically the same challenges when we talk about communicating to farmers, communicating to users of the pest control products. That simple things. Whenever you handle these crop protection products, also bear in mind, read the product label, wash your hands, don't smoke while handling the product. These basic things, but apparently for one reason or the other, people ignore them. You can imagine the recommendation, what people are saying in social media, whatever you are reading in social media, everything else. It's just basically simple things. No. But apparently in adopting those kind of things, it becomes difficult for the citizens. But all said and done, I think we are in the challenges, but we are going to go through if we work together.
Well, before I let you go, Eric, the situation currently in the country, you mentioned that right now there's, the ground management of the locust. And do you think that our farmers are going to go through, and what needs actually to be done, especially from the government side, because they are they've been given the key mandate to make sure that everything goes well, to make sure that we don't, these locusts don't again get out of hand and cause a situation where we end the production season with nothing at hand?
There are various things. First of all, they continue doing what they're doing, particularly the ground application. Involve quite a number of people who can also give different control strategies in terms of also allow in case the curfew is going to affect the free movement of crop protection products or fertilizers for those who are going to plant. Make sure that those farmers get farm inputs for the season and try to contain the locusts in areas that are not going to affect the main growing seasons.
Yes.
And by so doing that, as an industry, we know we have enough products for the various months to come in terms of management of locusts. We know that, yes, we have restricted close channel in terms of application. We know the various governments are going to close down their borders or also classify their products as essential so that they will not be exported for their own use. We have already seen that in terms of masks. Yes. We have seen that in terms of PPEs. And even yesterday, listening to the CS of Trade, saying how can we develop capabilities for our own people, for our own producing food for our own local. So those are some of the areas that the government needs to lead in case if we are going to fight this and going to have to close down. How are we going to ensure that we have food? Now we are not going to talk about having money to import because everybody else will not have enough to import, to export. So that we need to develop strategies that are going to make sure that, yes, we can produce as much as we have challenges of Locust. Yes, we have challenges of COVID, but there's post-COVID, there's post-Locust. How are you going to manage it? We might not have even enough resources to import. We might have even the resources, but we might not have the food. Okay. So we also need to create our own resilience. And we can develop our own resilience here by allowing, under conditions, that farmers access, those who can plant, those who can run any food, you plant, who can access inputs, you access inputs. Let them be classified as essential as well.
Yes.
So that there's post-COVID, post-Locust, we'll also be able to say, fine, we only have enough for Kenya, we can't export. Otherwise, we're going to have a problem into food shortage. There's going to be a global food shortage, no doubt about that. But how you develop your resilience starts now. But how cleverly you coin your cultivation, your production through or amid these challenges.
This may be a little bit out of, maybe your area of jurisdiction, but right before the locust invasion, we saw a situation where some farmers in the, growing areas were complaining that the government is not buying from them. I remember, for instance, we saw farmers in areas like Eldoret and Kitale, people who had tons of maize in the granaries, but then no one was coming to buy from them. Is this an opportune time for the government to make up for such?
Yes, it could be. You see, the government, the business of government is not to buy from farmers. It's actually business. Farmers need to produce and sell. What the government does, the government corrects market inequalities. In the event that the farmers have overproduced, the government can buy what has been overproduced to keep it for the next season. And basically, that's exactly what happens. So if there's any maize lying outside there that cannot be protected very well, this is the time now if the government has resources to acquire so that it can release to the market. Otherwise, with this kind of thing, farmers might not store it well, contamination with that, and all those kind of things. But if farmers can keep it well, also they can also supply it for sale within the country, quite logistical supply. But in most cases, what the government should do is just make sure the farmers get also production is okay, they can sell to various business millers and everything else. And whatever that is in excess of production, that's what the government can mop out from the market so that it corrects the market. And therefore it can also bring it back again when it's under supply so that it corrects the market. That's the role of the government in terms of regulating the market.
Or to try and just regulate the market, but not always directly buy from the market. Because
not always buying. And I think that is one thing that, of course, is a painful message to producers and everything else. But that is the reality that the government might not buy each and every maize we put. But we need to sell to the market. The government can only mop out the excess.
The reason I actually brought this up, Eric, is because we saw why the complaint was rising is because some farmers had maize in their stores, and yet at that particular time we had the CS talking about importing more maize for storage and food security. So the farmers were asking, hey, look, we've got maize here, but why is the government talking about bringing in maize, giving these billions of shillings for importation of maize?
Yes, that's a challenge, and in terms of statistics. You see, like, for instance, the government would say, we need 70 million. The correct statistics might not be just, excuse me to use these statistics, we need 64 million bags of maize, for instance, for next year. And our projections for production, we are projecting to have 44 million bags of maize. So the difference we are going to import. Okay. But then in terms of farmers will be sitting on that maize that has been captured as maize, that maize is in the farmer's store. It is not in the distribution tank.
No, it hasn't.
And those are some of the, probably the government needs to take further that as much as we're saying to produce food, that's on the farm level. But what is within the distribution, the reach of farmers? What incentives do we give farmers to produce this food now to bring it to the marketplace? So the incentives could be through the millers and everything else. So that the millers Remember also the millers will want also to push the government saying that no, because they are likely to import maize cheaply.
Then they decide not to buy
cheaper than what we produce. So it could also have business opportunity there. That if we go to produce maize, the government will say buy it at 3,000 shillings. But if we produce, we import it at cheaper at 2,000. So it could be such kind of things that bring about interest, self-interest into the whole maize value chain.
Well, Eric, I think we have to leave it at that. Really, thank you very much for sparing time and actually speaking to us this morning on GBS Morning Extra. It's always a pleasure having you around. And I hope
always a pleasure.
Yeah, I hope that we'll still find more time to talk about this, and I'll be engaging you in the coming days also to see what the progress is and whether you guys are still pushing the government and if there's any positive response in terms of what we spoke about. If also your kind of services can be also classified as essential so that we just don't see, latency or reduction in the, logistical movement of this much needed supplies.
Okay, thank you. The pleasure is all mine, Kimori. Anytime.
Karibu sana. Have a good day and stay at home if you have to.
Yeah, I'm staying at home. I'm working from home.
Thank you. Thank you, Eric. Have a good day. Well,
you as well. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Viewer, we have come to the end of that. And clearly, listening to Bona Eric there, it's something that is very important for the country also to consider. Much as we want to focus on the COVID-19, we also have other areas that, the country needs also to still continue to focus on. The infestation of locusts, you heard him say that right now we have what we can call, for lack of better words, Kenyan-born locusts, because the first swarms that we saw were coming from across the borders. But now the locusts that we're dealing with right now are eggs that were laid by, the locusts that did pass through the country, if I may say that. So we do hope that also the government will consider when it comes to logistical, handling of transportation of these essential agrochemicals and so on and so forth. Well, that brings us to the end of our program this morning. Thank you very much for joining us. For comments, suggestions, or opinion, you can always send us an SMS on 21144. Our hashtag is @Kenya. Our hashtag is GBS Morning Extra. Our Twitter handle is @KenyaGBS. My name is Timothy Omondi. Do have yourself a lovely day, and bye-bye for now.